All right, what's going on? A to Z Sports. Sam Phelan here with you live for Titans at 2. Just wrapped up here at St. Thomas Sports Park, the introductory press conference for Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator Dennard Wilson and offensive coordinator Nick Holz. Both were introduced to the media, had an opportunity to ask them questions, get questions into Brian Callahan as well, who was also made available as he talked a lot about the hires made to his coaching staff, both with his two coordinators and some of the assistants as well. So there's a lot to get into. There's a lot that is still going to be trickling out throughout this week on A to Z Sports with a lot of my takeaways and some more detail and quotes about everything that we got into. It was very informative, very interesting. I would say overall, a very impressive press conference from both Dennard Wilson and Nick Holz. Reminder that Titans at 2 is sponsored and presented by the Aura app, because anyone can find anything on the internet that includes your full name, your personal email, your home address, phone number, even relatives. Internet is a scary place. And we live in a digital world where a lot of people are just online most of the time. So you have to stay safe online, or we'll do the hard work to keeping you safe online by protecting you from robocallers, telemarketers, spammers. They've got credit and identity theft monitoring in real time with a VPN. Anything you need to be safe online, Aura has you covered. So let them do the hard work and sign up with Aura at aura.com/ATOZ. You can get a 2-week free trial. Just test it out for yourself and see the difference that it makes in your life. So aura.com/ATOZ. And I am at 2:00 here today. Jonathan trying to give me a hard time about what time I'm going live here. And the other Jonathan wants me to spill the beans on what happened today during the press conference. There's been a lot going on at St. Thomas Sports Park this afternoon, and I'm not spilling. I am not going to be the one to blow the whistle on what's happening here. But there's been some tensions that have been fired up. So we're moving on. I ain't no snitch. I will not be snitching. So get it elsewhere. I'm sorry if that rains on your parade a little bit, if you were hoping I'd spill the beans, but I will not be doing that. I will, however, be talking about 3 real takeaways that I had from the press conference today, with Dennard Wilson speaking to the media, Nick Holz speaking to the media, and then Brian Callahan speaking about his staff in general. And Dennard Wilson was every bit as advertised as I was kind of expecting. I really enjoyed listening to him speak about the defense that he was going to run, about the preparation that he was going to bring in with him. This is a guy who I think is long overdue to be a defensive coordinator. Probably could have gotten a defensive coordinator job a couple of years ago, and has since just been refining his skills. Dennard Wilson did kind of reiterate some of the points that Rand Carthon said in a recent podcast appearance, where he told the media that joining the Titans felt like the perfect fit because, number one, he's admired the organization for a while, the style of defense that the organization is known for, the opportunity to work with Brian Callahan, who he feels like he had instant chemistry with and who appreciates the game, wants to grind the same way that he does. So that first defensive coordinator with the first time head coach felt like a good fit. The pre-existing relationship with Rand Carthon. Dennard Wilson chose the Titans over several other options. And now he's the Titans defensive coordinator. I'm fired up about it. I think Titans fans should be too. Here's a little bit from the Titans DC about the style of defense he wants to run. And one thing that I think we're going to be seeing a lot of is just an aggressive blitzing Titans defense.
What do you kind of envision building off of from the as a start?
Well, right now we're just going through the process. We just got here 2 days ago, really. The staff's coming together. So we're evaluating the players, evaluating the talent that's here. About football, it's not about scheme, it's about the players, right? So we have to figure out what they do well, and then we'll put the scheme around them, right, to allow their talents to flourish. I can tell you this about the scheme, all right? And I learned this a long time ago. General George Patton said this: nobody ever defended anything successful. You're going to attack and attack some more. We're going to be attacking defense. We're going to be violent in our approach. All right, we're going to be smart. We're going to be intelligent. We're never going to compromise for competing. And that's the style of brand of football that we're going to play around here.
So, great wins. Like, how much did that influence what you plan to do here?
Well, just like anything, you learn from the people that you've been around. And obviously, I've been around a lot of great coordinators. So a lot of things that they do is entrenched in my being. A lot of the philosophies they've had, I believe in. So we're going to blitz, but we're going to blitz, and when we blitz, it's going to be smart. It's going to be educated. It's going to be there at the right time. It's just not going to be reckless. We're going to play coverage. We're going to play man-to-man. We're going to be multiple in everything we do, all right, in terms of our fronts, any of those things. So we'll be versatile, all right. We'll present problems to offenses, all right, on how we approach it, and, we'll go from there. Well, I live by these three principles as a coach. As a coach, you must be able to teach, motivate, and inspire. And any player that I've ever been around, the first thing I'm gonna do, I pride myself on being a hell of a teacher. I'm gonna motivate them to be better than what they think they should be or reach the potential they're supposed to. And I'm gonna inspire them to go get it. And the coaches that we have on the staff, they have the same mantra. They believe in the same thing. So when we get a player, whether we in free agency or in the draft, those are our guys. And we're going to do everything we can in our power to teach, motivate, and inspire them to maximize their potential and go out there and have success.
So there is a lot there. Quite honestly, found it a little difficult to just kind of break down, like find only a couple clips about a couple things, because Dennard Wilson and Brian Callahan and really the entire press conference was filled with really good stuff. Probably the highlight there, as a couple of you point out, is Dennard Wilson quoting General Patton saying, "Nobody ever defended anything successful. We're gonna attack and attack some more." And that is going to be the theme of this Titans defense. Two of the most influential people, two defensive coordinators that Dennard Wilson worked under that he claims shaped him, Todd Bowles, Greg Williams, two people absolutely known for bringing a high frequency of blitz packages, being very aggressive at pressuring the quarterback. And so it's something that I think you can expect to see the Titans do a lot of. I did, the base defense not necessarily being a base defense as far as 4-3 and 3-4, and really wanting to assess what his players do well and go from there to build a scheme around players, I think is an absolute green flag when it comes to a defensive coordinator. I just think this, Dennard Wilson has the personality of a guy who I think can lead a very successful defense. I think his track record in Baltimore, his track record in Philadelphia speaks for itself. And so as advertised, like I said, this was one of my favorite hires of the offseason so far. Not hard to see why Brian Callahan and him get along so well, or why Rand Carthon and him get along so well, just from his press conference. So all systems go with this Titans defense and Dennard Wilson. Excited to see the physicality that he brings to the table. Then Nick Holz came to the podium, which is different, right? Because Dennard Wilson is able to speak more about philosophy and what the Titans are going to do on defense. And as Brian Callahan said at one point during the press conference, Dennard Wilson will have full autonomy to run whatever defense he wants to. It is his show on defense. He's the head coach of the defense in some ways. Nick Holz is different. Nick Holz is not calling plays. Nick Holz is not calling the show or running the show. He's more just overseeing the execution and the operations of the offense. And one thing Brian Callahan pointed out as being Nick Holz's role is really going to come down to it during the week leading up to preparation for a game, right? Brian Callahan's going to help install a game plan of what types of plays the Titans want to run ahead of time. That's all going to be predetermined. During games, he's going to be the one calling plays as well. But as Brian Callahan fulfills his head coach duties, kind of has to oversee an entire roster and an entire practice squad and an entire staff. And he's not able to be as pigeonholed onto his offense. Those responsibilities will then fall down to Nick Holz. When asked kind of about his offensive philosophy and his style during the press conference, Nick Holz and Jason, quite honestly, I don't know. I would have to look back at how Brian Callahan pronounced it, if it's Nick Holz or Holtz. I say Holtz clearly, but we will see. I should probably figure that out. That's a good call. But when asked in the press conference, hey, what is your philosophy as far as like offense is concerned? How do you want your offense to be identified? Certain things. Nick Holz deferred to Brian Callahan, said, nah, that's probably a better question for him as the play caller. So who Nick Holz is as an offensive coordinator is going to look very different from, what an offensive coordinator is around the league. Brian Callahan wants this style, this relationship to mirror what he had with Zach Taylor in Cincinnati as kind of being an assistant to the head coach, who is also the play caller as the offensive coordinator and overseeing some of these operations. One thing I did find interesting was the way that both Brian Callahan and Nick Holz talked about quarterback Will Levis. Holtz saying Will Levis and what he showed as a rookie was part of the reason that the job is attractive to him and why it was attractive to Brian and other coaches on the staff. And then Brian Callahan discussing his relationship with Levis and how important he feels like the line of communication between him and his quarterback is going to be to the Titans having success as an organization.
So, starting with, last year in Jacksonville, we weren't really in the first round quarterback market, so I hadn't really watched very much of them. And then starting to watch them, when I was with the Jags as, opponent crossover film, the first thing that kind of jumped off is obviously, the arm talent. And then the second thing I would say that really jumps off is the toughness, right? I think we talk about for quarterbacks, the three things we're looking for is decision-making, accuracy, and toughness. And you saw all that, and I'm sure, he would say he probably wants to improve in some of those areas and things like that, but you could see that baseline there for him of that those skills are there. And so it was, I think it's a reason what made this job probably so attractive to Brian and probably the rest of us.
What week's been like with them and why it's important to kind of keep them up to speed with everything going on.
Yeah, it's been great. I know that as the quarterback, you're certainly not you're not owed those explanations or input, but I think the best relationships with head coaches and quarterbacks are ones where they are given those opportunities to share information like that. And I thought it was important to keep Will abreast of what was happening, both hiring wise, where we were at organizationally. Just he plays a huge role in this whole thing too, and so he needs to feel like he's got some at least has my ear and can come to me with anything he thinks, and then I'm able to tell him what's happening for us. And I think that's important for him to feel like he's got some involvement, some ownership, some input to what's happening. And again, it's not necessarily that he's owed that. It's just that I think that's the working relationship that I want to have with him. And I think for me, starting that precedent was the right thing to do. And I think he's appreciated it. And it's been really fun to start to get to know him. Obviously, he was out in Vegas. I called him the other day just to check in. He was getting ready to go play with Phil Mickelson. And as I'm learning about Will, I asked him when he came back. He was back here yesterday, and I asked him, "Hey, how was it? What did you think?" And he goes, "I was just mad that none of my drives hit the fairway." And I was like, "Well, when was the last time you played?" And he goes, "The bye week." I was like, "Well, I don't know, man. I tell you, if I went out and swung a club right now, I don't think I'd hit many fairways either." But just speaks to the competitiveness, and he wanted to play well and show well. So I just thought that was fun that he got a chance to go out there and be around those people. But my relationship with him, his relationship with me and Nick and Bo is going to be really a critical factor in our success. And I wanted to make sure that he feels like he has input and ownership into that process, and we can kind of build it from there and hope that he gives me the same kind of feedback I need from him.
So I love all of that from Brian Callahan. I think it's really, really interesting. And one thing that he ended up, talking about a little bit later on in the press conference was his relationship with Jake Browning. Brian Callahan is given a lot of credit in Cincinnati for how seamlessly the Bengals offense transitioned from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning after Burrow got injured. during the season last year. And one thing Brian Callahan kind of gave credit to for that was his relationship with Jake. And he says, like, yeah, me and Jake Browning had a great relationship where if he wasn't comfortable with like a play call, he would just come to me and say, don't call that. I don't like that. And their constant line of communication kind of made Browning feel like he was able to come to whether it be Zach Taylor or, Callahan with those concerns. And that's something he clearly wants to establish as well with Will Levis, is an open line of communication where, Will Levis has as much say in this offense and control in this offense as Brian Callahan does. And as, they've proceeded with hiring some members of the staff, Brian Callahan has been in communication with Will Levis. And I really love that, because I think any Titans fan would get on board with the idea that, like, Will Levis is the future for the Titans and needs to be if this is going to work. None of it matters if the quarterback isn't correct, and you need your quarterback to thrive. We've learned that with the Kansas City Chiefs and countless other examples of the top teams in the National Football League. And so having a good relationship between Brian Callahan and Will Levis is paramount. And it's good to see Brian Callahan prioritizing Will Levis early on. It's good to hear a coach like Nick Holz talking about Will Levis so highly and saying about how it feels like for me and the other members of our offensive staff, this feels like that was a big reason why we came here. It does, as Danny points out, sound like everybody is on the same page and pushing in the same direction, which I think brings me to another big takeaway from just this press conference, the last press conference, and the Titans coaching staff as a whole. Brian Callahan said in his introductory presser that he wants things in Tennessee to feel like a family. He wants players to come excited to come to work every day, to show up to the building excited to work. It's something that Brian Callahan says he felt in Cincinnati working under Zach Taylor, and that he wants to establish in Nashville. Rand Carthon very much on the same page there. And so when you look at the staff that Brian Callahan has put together, one, his dad is literally on the staff. He has actual family on the staff, but everybody has a tie or a relationship and a web that extends somewhere, where they've hired Tom Jones, who came over from the Raiders and has worked with Bill Callahan and Nick Holz before, and he's worked with a number of the coaches on the staff, including QB coach Bo Hardigree as well. There seems to be a lot of common relationships and guys who are cut from the same cloth and are of similar mindsets on the staff. So I did talk to Brian Callahan about why that was so important to him. And he did kind of refer back to what he said in his first press conference, which is like, hey, if we're going to expect players to come to work wanting to push the same direction, wanting them to push the same direction as us, wanting them to feel like this is a family, wanting them to feel like they're excited to work every single day, they need to feel that from the coaching staff. They need a coaching staff around them that is excited to work with one another, that feels like a family, that feels like they're all pushing in the same direction. And I think that's what's been really impressive to me about this staff. And it's why I think somebody like Jason says they're usually a pessimist, but this feels right. I would agree with that. Like, I'm a little sour on the Nick Holz hire as offensive coordinator. I don't necessarily believe he is qualified to be an offensive coordinator, but I'm willing to let it happen and let it play out, because I'm willing to trust Brian Callahan. And I do believe in the bigger picture of what Brian Callahan is trying to establish with his staff, that being culture, that being a like-minded environment where relationships between players and staffs are growing together. I think it's a successful way of conducting yourself and a successful way of building a winning standard. And so a good start there, and a good sign to me that also involves your quarterback, your young quarterback in Will Levis. The other thing that I thought was interesting was just listening to Brian Callahan talk about Bill Callahan. So I will play what he said about adding his father to the Titans coaching staff. But I do want to remind everybody that Titans at 2 is sponsored by NFL Flag Football and Titans NFL Flag Football Leagues for boys and girls pre-K through 5th grade in and around Nashville. It's a once-a-week program that goes on Sundays for a total of 2 hours on Sundays. The registration for the league is getting ready to close. It is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. And registration will close on February 18th with the season starting in March and going throughout May. So you just have a couple more days to register. In and around Nashville, once-a-week program, Sundays for a total of 2 hours. Again, starting in March and going to May for boys and girls pre-K through 5th grade. Go ahead and register. It's www.titansflagfootball.com. The link is in the description of the YouTube video of the show. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the description and go register there after we wrap up here. Let's get to the Bill Callahan thing. As I see some of you in the chat are just now realizing, because I reminded you it's Valentine's Day. Yeah, if you have a significant other, you might want to do something before you get home from work. Stop on the way home from work, or after my show wraps up here. Go and take care of business. You're welcome to Jason. Go get something done. Go do something nice for your significant other today. It's a good day to do it. I don't know. Even if you don't like Valentine's Day, go do it. Here's Brian Callahan on adding his dad, Bill Callahan, to the staff and the value that he brings. This is just great stuff.
Experience goes, there's not really anybody that has more in all the different facets of an organization. He's been a head coach in college in the NFL. He's called plays in the NFL. He's been arguably, in my opinion, the best offensive line coach in football for a long time. His experience and his wealth of knowledge, he probably knows, he's probably forgotten more football than I know. And so it's a huge asset to us to have him. And again, not just because, that's my father, but because of his experience as a football coach. And again, there's not many better out there. And for, Nick worked for him a long time ago. You would argue that they're probably both very different people at this point. My dad in particular, but just the ability to have that knowledge, experience, wisdom, perspective on all the things that go on from top to bottom in the football process, not just the coaching. And so to have that available to us is huge. And trust me, he'll have quite a bit of input and ability to help us along the process. He's very understanding of what it means to sit in the chair that I sit in every day, having done it himself. He knows when advice is welcome. He knows when he probably should leave me alone. I know when I should leave him alone on the flip side. But it's just been really fun for us to be able to I said he's got this 16-inch clincher, those softballs, the 16-inch softballs, and he played growing up, and he has one of them in his office. And he came in the office the other day. It was probably about 9 o'clock, and we were kind of finishing some stuff up, and I'm sitting there throwing a softball back and forth as we're talking about some different ideas for something. And so just to have that experience has been really cool. And he just wants to be able to help me and to help this organization win. And that part's been really fun. It's been a really cool experience for me so far.
Brian Callahan did add, he's had the opportunity to just drive to work with his father every day. A very unique experience, very cool experience, as I'm sure everybody can imagine. But it's more than just having his father on the coaching staff. I mean, Bill Callahan is, in his eyes, one of the best, or he said the best offensive line coach in the sport, and has been for a while, but he's undoubtedly, at least in the conversation, he has been consistently one of the better offensive line coaches. He has experience as a head coach, and that stuff is going to be really invaluable for this Titans staff. Randy Jordan, the running backs coach, as well, is a former running back that used to play for Bill Callahan, you're talking about marrying an offensive line coach that's one of the best offensive line coaches in the sport with a running back that used to play for him and used to coach for him at Nebraska. Nick Holz used to coach for Bill Callahan at Nebraska. This is what I'm talking about when I refer to the webs that are all interconnected and intertwined, and kind of the family that is being formed with this Titans coaching staff. Bill Callahan is such a big part of that. And I thought it was great that Brian Callahan says too, he knows more football, or he's forgotten more football than I know. So really interesting, really good stuff there about the Titans' new offensive line coach, and a reason why I am feeling better about this staff as well. The experience that is on this staff, I think, will be very valuable for a first-time defensive coordinator, first-time offensive coordinator, and first-time head coach, where none of them have ever been a play caller before. That is the reality of things here with Dennard Wilson, Brian Callahan, and Nick Holz as your big three. None of them have been play callers before. None of them have been in their current roles before. But you do have people on the staff. Frank Bush is a guy defensively that Dennard Wilson referred to a lot as being somebody he's going to rely on. Frank Bush has been a defensive coordinator in the league before. Bill Callahan has been a head coach and an offensive coordinator before. And so you start to add a lot of experience around your guys. I think it will make this staff successful. So as somebody points out, let's not praise anything till it's proven. I think TK is on the money here. Words are, at the end of the day, just words. So far, though, I think I'm giving a thumbs up to Brian Callahan, to Dennard Wilson, and I'm willing to wait and see on Nick Holz. I'm not thrilled by it, but I think if you're a Titans fan that's upset at the Nick Holz hire right now, you just need to trust the offense in the hands of Brian Callahan and trust that he has a vision for something bigger that is coming. Free agents coming up, followed by the draft. This is Ran Carthon season. As Jason points out, it's also Brian Callahan season, though. He's going to have a huge say in some of the players that are added to this roster. I think next up will probably be a couple more coaching hires. We still have a special teams coordinator that needs to be hired. We still have an assistant offensive line coach that needs to be hired. And then finally, a strength coach that needs to be hired, which could potentially come with a new strength and conditioning staff as well. Some of those strength and conditioning staff members from Mike Vrabel's time with the Titans were retained, but Brian Callahan did mention to the media that some of those decisions would be up to whoever that new strength coach is. So those are still coming. Keep an eye out for those. But this staff, as Callie said, is 95% done. And I think Titans fans have a lot of reason to be excited, at least for something fresh, for something new, and for hope in Nashville regarding Tennessee Titans football. That's all I got for you guys today. I think it was a great press conference. You can watch a lot of the highlights on the A to Z Sports YouTube channel and get some more of my takeaways and Buck Rising's takeaways, either on our shows here coming out throughout the next few weeks or on our articles that are going to be on A2Zsports.com. Don't forget to leave a like on the show. We don't have nearly enough likes on the show. That'll help me out a ton as more people file in here that weren't able to join me live, people that weren't quite as loyal soldiers as all of you. And again, happy Steve McNair Day, number one. Happy Valentine's Day, and go take care of business if you haven't celebrated either one appropriately yet. Go and do what you need to do so that nobody's getting into trouble because you're not celebrating Steve McNair Day appropriately. That's all I got for you guys today. I will be back with you early next week to talk about whatever the newest story is. We're getting close to combine season with more draft coverage coming your way on A to Z Sports and more stuff coming out as free agency quickly approaches as well. Till next time, tighten up. We'll see you later.